So let's get started. Good morning and welcome to another Boll morning session online. Again, with the topic Prisma Cloud. Some of you already or remember that we had a similar session back in April with a focus more on sales, meaning we covered the use cases and some of the functionalities. Today we have more time. My name is Rolf Bammert. I'm sales engineer at Boll Engineering. We also have Nicolas Vogel from Palo Alto Networks today in the session. He is channel systems engineer covering Switzerland and Austria.
Good morning, everyone.
So before we start, some general information. We record the webinar and you get a follow-up email from me later on with the link to the recorded webinar and all the slides as well. You are all on mute. That means if you have questions, please use the questions and answer section within your Zoom window. Welcome again. I think that part is already done. The main part is basically really Prisma Cloud, which Nico is covering. He goes again into what Prisma Cloud is, all the individual modules. We cover them in theory, but then of course we also want to have a look at how it behaves in real life. So Nico prepared a demo environment where he is sharing he's sharing a demo then. Later on, I will cover the licensing and also will share some useful resources with you. And before we end, we do have some time for a general questions and answer session. So with that, I would like to hand over. So Nico, let me stop the presentation. And Nico, you can start then.
All good. Good morning, everyone. We'll try to present. Rolf, you can just confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes.
All good. Okay, thank you. And again, good morning, everyone, and thanks for having me. So today we'll try to get a little bit more deep dive about Prisma Cloud and all the capabilities we can offer. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Nico. I'm a channel systems engineer based in Zurich, covering Switzerland and Austria. And when I look at the attendees, I think I'm already know most of you, so all good, right? You have my email address. If you have any question, feel free to reach out directly to Rolf or to myself after all. So quick introduction about Prisma Cloud, just to set the stage again and for you to understand a little bit better where we position it in our portfolio. You know that our portfolio was growing a lot in the several last years. Basically, Prisma Cloud is a part in blue here in the middle, what we call the cloud-native security platform, CNSP. And yes, I know, and you will see I'm going to use a lot of acronyms during this presentation. It's cloud, it's new, and yeah, most of the time it's like this when you enter a new market, when you come with new product, new capabilities, you have to learn some new acronyms as well, right? So CNSP for Cloud Native Security Platform is our offering for CNSP is called a Prisma Cloud here in blue. Just as a recap, you know that everything in yellow here, what we call the strata part from our portfolio, is part of our firewall business, whatever the form factor might be: hardware, virtual firewall, firewall for cloud, firewall as a container, and everything in green is part of our Cortex portfolio. This is everything related to detection and response, automation, and AI, right? So Prisma Cloud is only one product focusing on cloud security with mainly two pillars. And the way we have built and developed the Prisma Cloud offering, we started more than 3 years ago now, in our third quarter from our fiscal year 18. We just started now quarter 4 from our fiscal year 21. So it's more than 3 years that we started with some acquisition, and we made acquisition in different areas, right? As you can see, and our goal really is to integrate all those technologies. So we really buy, smaller companies, startups. We want to integrate them. We want to take the technology to make it something useful, to give the opportunity for customer to have a much more holistic view and unified experience when it comes to cloud security. And that's why we acquired all those different companies. So 2 companies focusing on cloud security posture management. Another very important acronym, CSPM. It's about public cloud security, where we're going to use APIs for visibility, enforcing policies, getting logs, and so on. Then for container and serverless, it's another approach, what is called CWP, Cloud Workload Protection. And there it's about integrating in the infrastructure as an agent, as a container, even with our own code for serverless. And I'm most of the time I'm doing a recap, just to briefly explain what serverless is about, because it's new for a lot of people. I think the most popular service now out there today is AWS Lambda. And serverless, what is also called function as a service, is just about executing code, right? That means in the public cloud, for example, if you're working with AWS, instead of starting a new machine, installing an operating system, installing an SDK, patching everything, developing your code, and letting it run on that specific machine, you can just write your code and give it to AWS in that case, to a function called Lambda, and AWS will execute it for you. So you don't have to care about the operating system, about patching, about the software development kit, about the packages you have to install, about dependencies, and so on. And you just pay when your code is executed, right? So that means if you have some code that has to run, just for some test once a week, once a month, or even just once a year, because it would be in an emergency case, you really just pay when you use it, right? And we can protect that as well by integrating some additional code to your function. That is what is called cloud workload protection. Okay. We also made 2 months ago now in March, the very last acquisition we made is called the Bridge Crew, because you probably heard about the shift left philosophy. What is really now coming and a real trend in the industry. It's about bringing security as near as possible to the developers, right? You have a lot of people now adopting Adobe DevOps or working in the DevOps modus. That means that you don't patch your stuff once it is launched. Each time you want to modify something, each time you want to enhance something, each time you want to whatever the modification you want to do, you will modify your code, right? And what is running, it's just destroyed, and you will push your code to what is called a CI/CD pipeline for continuous integration and continuous development. And we can interact with that pipeline. We can scan your code. We can find vulnerabilities. We can find stuff that we will, we give you a warning, because we will see that those resources are, for example, internet exposed, easily accessible from the outside, and so on. And we had some capabilities already in the product, but we want to go further, and that's why we acquired Bridge Crew. And Bridge Crew will really help us to scan, for example, Terraform script, what is called infrastructure as code, because you know that you cannot just deploy your server, your VMs, or your container as code. You can deploy the whole infrastructure as a code, right? You can just write a script, and the whole infrastructure, everything you are deploying in a public cloud, can be described in a file, what is called infrastructure as code. And we want to be able to scan that from the beginning, and to at a very early stage be able to detect, of course, if something is vulnerable, if you are at risk, if you should not, deploy that kind of infrastructure in order to help the developer go safer. And the very last point we had, and I'm sorry I will not be able to show that already, it's still in beta, and I don't have any data in my my demo system for that. We want to go further as well for all topics related to network security, right? And that's why we bought a company called Appareto, and Appareto will get away a little bit from traditional concept when it comes to firewalling, and we're going to focus on identity, what we call identity-based micro-segmentation. We want to focus on certificate in order to allow a container, for example, to discuss with another, or a VM to discuss with another, right? So it's another layer. Of course, we will still enforce policy based on application, on ports and IP addresses, but we can house that now. We continuing, our with a zero trust philosophy we are adopting, and all that together is our Prisma Cloud offering. You see it here graphically, a little bit different, but you can recognize the very important acronyms that I just told you. CSPM for Cloud Security Posture Management. Again, it's about public cloud security and only public cloud providers. We connect using APIs, and of course the tool is not naked. We provide you per default hundreds of policy to get visibility, compliance, and governance in public cloud. We come, of course, with our own threat intel, Palo Alto Networks, Wildfire, Unit 42. So in the background, of course, we had a lot of information we can provide you. And one of the newest feature we just launched with the 2.0 version is data security, DLP. DLP is important for Palo Alto Networks. We launched DLP capabilities as a subscription on top of our firewalls, for example, a few months ago with PAN-OS 10.0. We are now also introducing DLP capabilities within Prisma Cloud. For example, being able to scan an S3 bucket from AWS and take the data, take the files in there and check or put them into Wildfire for a sandboxing analysis. Okay. I'm just seeing that there is something in the chat. Okay, thank you. Just please use the Q&A question. And I'm not sure I said it at the beginning, but please make it interactive. Feel free to ask as many questions as you want during the webinar. And Rolf, just interrupt me if I'm missing a question. And the second very important pillar is that one, cloud workload protection. Again, a little bit a different approach. It's about integrating with an agent into the infrastructure, as we can integrate just as a service, as a daemon on the host. We can integrate as a container ourselves. That is what Twistlock was doing really well when we acquired them. As I said, we can add code to your function. And also we're now providing, that is a new capability as well, since a couple of months, web application and API security. So we have WAF functionalities in Prisma Cloud, and we can help you by create policies for API security, because of course in public cloud, everything is automated. You work a lot with API. You want to make sure that all the API calls you're doing are safe, okay? And for the two other pillars here, cloud network security, it's what I described earlier, the acquisition from Appareto. We are showing it as a new pillar, but again, we are integrating ourselves with an agent. So basically, it's also apart from CWP, right? But it's a bigger part, a more important part. That's why we are, on marketing slide, we are showing it as a dedicated pillar. And that one, everything related to identity and access management, and I'm sorry, again, a new acronym, cloud infrastructure and entitlement management. We haven't made any acquisition for that. It's in-house development, a new feature we are providing, and now we can connect to the IAM tools, identity and access management tools from the public cloud provider, using the APIs in order to get visibility and to understand if that guys with those privileges should be able to do that or not. And of course, we can enforce that. Okay, so as we are using APIs and it's only for public cloud providers, again, these are CIEM is a subset from CSPM also, right? But it's a very important part. You probably know that everybody is saying that, there is no real perimeter anymore. Identity is a new perimeter. Identity is really strategic, and we will continue to develop it very, very strongly. So that's why it's shown here as well as a dedicated pillar, and to emphasize the fact that we are here continuously launching new features, new area, expanding the capabilities from the tool. And within Prisma Cloud, you can benefit from all those features. Okay, just checking, see if you have any question. I don't see any.
Yeah, Nico, I do have one.
Please.
Yeah, basically, Prisma Cloud offers the cloud workload protection, but at the same time, we also have the CN series, right, and the VM series. How do they differentiate? Maybe you can elaborate on it. I mean, there is host, container, and serverless protection, right? And we do have layer 7 protection with the WAS module and the API security. But as far as I know, I mean, CN series deeply dives into Kubernetes and basically is an application firewall covering all ports and not just layer 7, right? So sometimes there is a confusion there. When should I sell what? Can you elaborate a little bit on that point? And then
yes, sure. Maybe if you allow me, I will just go back 2 slides. Okay, can you see it? This is the one with straight CN series. And thank you for your question. And the answer is it depends. Okay, and it's complementary with a small overlapping. So Prisma Cloud, I just explained everything we can do. Right, that's true. We now have the WAS function coming for, we will provide web application firewall capabilities, and Twistlock, when we acquired them, they had some basic layer 4 policy, which basically each and every security tool has, right? I mean, you can block or allow a port. It's not exactly what we want to do on our firewall. You know that since 15 years, we came up with a next-gen firewall focusing on those areas. So the CN series firewall as a container form factor is a real next-gen firewall. The same next-gen firewall you probably already know. We have it in hardware. We have it in VM series. We have it in VM series for private cloud, VM series for public cloud now. The CN series is compatible with everything following the Kubernetes standard. Okay, so it could be Kubernetes managed on-prem, it could be Kubernetes in the cloud, OpenShift. We are compatible for that, and I can send you the link to the compatibility matrix if you want. It's a firewall. A firewall means it's focusing on network security. We are doing there a very good job. Okay, for the network part, we are focusing on all application. Don't forget, WAF is focusing on web application. Okay, even the native tools. Even if you go to Azure, to AWS, or to Google, yes, you will have load balancers. You will have some what they call layer 7 application. It's only HTTP based. 47% from traffic in public cloud, there was a study from Gartner last year, is not HTTP based. The front end is most of the time HTTP based, right? That's true. But what is running behind? Or everything, all the interaction you have with database server, with backups, with everything you're trying to do, lots of protocols are not, right? If you want to intercept DNS traffic, for example. So the CN series can capture all traffic, all applications that you already know. It's managed with Panorama, and depending who you are talking to, your entry point will be different. Okay, I'm, for example, involved now in 2 projects with CN series because the people we are talking to are the admin guys, the network security guys managing Panorama, and they told us, okay, we know we have to do something with that container part. For us, it's kind of a black box. We have, Panorama and firewalls in place, the perimeter in the data center. Let's use the same security layer from a network perspective only and put that in front of all our containers. Okay, and then we have different use cases depending how you want to enforce the traffic. But basically, you have inbound, you have outbound, you have east-west, and you decide how to want to redirect the traffic to the firewall or not. And then you can leverage exactly the same firewall as the same capabilities as your next-gen firewall. It's really a next-gen firewall. It's just the form factor that is different. Now with Prisma Cloud, yes, on the pure firewalling side, there is a small overlapping because Prisma Cloud can do layer 4 policy. Okay, they can do layer 7 policy for HTTP traffic. Okay, but Prisma Cloud comes now with truly WAF functions. We are not a WAF with the firewall part. So Strata is not competing in the WAF area. You have WAF capabilities in Prisma Cloud. You have API security in Prisma Cloud, and you will see it in the demo. We can go much deeper to analyze the code, for example, to discuss with a DevOps guy, discuss with the developers, discuss with the cloud architects, which is a totally different story as discussing with people who are responsible for network security. But it's very complementary. Okay, there is a short overlapping. That's true. But if you want to do it right, you need both. Now, we know the reality from the market, depending who you are talking to, it's you can start with a different approach.
Great. Okay. Thanks for the explanation. Good? Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. I'm always taking a little bit more time when I explain that, because I don't want to give the impression that we have a lot of products that just compete and everything is doing the same and you don't know. There is a very clear positioning depending on what you want to do, where you want to start, what is your level of maturity with container, with DevOps or with microservices, and depending who is responsible for security and who is your partner in that case. Okay, so just to come back, as I explained, there are mainly two pillars. Okay, we are covering with our cloud-native security platform called Prisma Cloud. There is a CSPM part, Cloud Security Posture Management. We are using APIs from public cloud providers to give you visibility, to enforce policy, for reporting, and so on. And then there is a CWP part, Cloud Workload Protection, where we integrate with an agent, and this agent is a little bit different depending if it's running as a process on the host, running as a container. If it's just code we inject in a function, or the new agent that will come for identity-based microsegmentation for enforcing policies based on certificates, right? But this is a different approach. We can cover both with Prisma Cloud with just one product. Okay, if you want to cover just that, yes, we have what we call the Prisma Cloud Compute Edition, covering only cloud workload protection without this new module and running just on-prem. But then you are responsible, of course, for management, for deploying, for everything, right? What I'm going to show you today is a enterprise version, which is SaaS-based, of course, because we want to connect to public cloud providers, and it's a whole package, right? It is definitely what we want to sell to our customers. So, as I said, Prisma Cloud, the enterprise version for the CSPM part, supports out of today, as of today, the 5 big public cloud providers. Okay, I know there is a roadmap. We want to add always more, and our goal is always to have feature parity to all those providers. Now you will see the reality from the market and the reality for our customer is that from Palo Alto Networks perspective, AWS is the biggest market. That's why each time we launch a new feature, for example, for serverless, for example, for identity and access management module, AWS will always be our first choice, or at least it was like this in the past. Okay, but we have a very clear roadmap and we have a very clear commitment that we want to have feature parity for all the public cloud providers. And Azure and Google was already announced, right, for identity and access management part, for example. So again, we support all those 5 the big public cloud providers for the CSPM pile using the APIs. with a SaaS version. I told you there are two deployment models. The enterprise version, it's SaaS-based, hosted in the cloud, managed by Palo Alto Networks, or the self-managed, where you can integrate yourself, you can deploy the agent yourself, but of course you're responsible then for everything, and it's only covering CWP. For the SaaS version, of course, we have different location, and you can choose EU, and we have a privacy data sheet for that if you are concerned about GDPR and how we are handling data and where the data are based. So we can share the privacy data sheet with you as well. For the computing part, then we support basically any cloud. Whatever the cloud might be, it can be a public cloud offering like AKS or AKS, or for Azure, it's this is Azure. It's EKS, AKS for AWS, for Elastic Kubernetes Service, for example. It could be container you're managing yourself on premises, container you're managing yourself in public cloud. For the CWP part, we can integrate really everywhere. Okay, so we really have those two layers. Public cloud using APIs, we are supporting 5, and then CWP for cloud workload protection, and then we support any cloud, any kind of deployment, as long as you're compatible with Kubernetes OpenShift standard. What is really interesting is that we can integrate, as I told you, in the CI/CD pipeline as well, right? All those tools are tools used by developers, where for code repository, for this is the so-called CI/CD pipeline for continuous integration, continuous development. This is a philosophy for DevOps, and we can integrate with those tools. We can analyze the code, and we can prevent the code to be deployed, right? And if you think about a container, you know that a container is not patched, right? If I have a problem with a container is always built from an image. An image is kind of a template, and then you can start hundreds, thousands of containers from that image. If I have an issue, if I detect, for example, a vulnerability, I'm not going to patch each and every container. I'm going to destroy this container. I'm going to modify my code, right? Very early. That's why we have to integrate with GitHub, with GitLab, with Jenkins, and all those tools. HashiCorp, Terraform is more for infrastructure as a service, but it's exactly the same philosophy. It's about writing code, and everything I want to do is code, is in a script. We can analyze those, and we can give you already information, or we can even prevent it from being deployed by interacting with those tools. And that brings security to the developer. That is what is called the shift left. Okay, so I see there is a question.
Right, there is a question, Nico. Does cloud workload protection serverless support Azure functions? So we learned it is host, container, and works for serverless. And the question is, does it integrate with Azure functions?
Not as part, not today, I would say. I've seen no information about that. Even before, when I checked in my demo systems, there were no Azure function. As I told you, we have a very clear roadmap and a commitment that we want to provide feature parity between all public cloud providers. I know it's a question that comes a lot, especially in our regions, because we see a lot of Azure with a lot of customer going into Azure. So I'm not able to talk about the roadmap, but definitely we are thinking about it. And maybe, Rolf, we could check if we could provide a little bit kind of more, more granular or more detailed explanation per email. Maybe we have an ETR already that we can.
Yes, I made a note of the question,
okay.
And we'll do a follow-up later on. That's fine.
Okay, good. Just very briefly, that's for you as a partner. Think about making a demo. Think about how do you address public cloud security when you go to a customer. As I told you, it's a SaaS product, right? You can go to marketplace.paloaltonetworks.com. You can start that email. You can go to your customer. Of course, it just has to provide you a service account with some privileges or several service accounts if he's working with several clouds. And you can use that. The tool comes with hundreds of predefined security policies. The tool comes, of course, with behavior analytics to understand if a user is acting in a suspicious way. The tool comes with threat intelligence, of course. So use it, make an eval, assess the security posture from your customer, and that's really on you, right? To be able to position you as well as a partner for public cloud security, and starting at another layer. That does not mean that you cannot speak about VM series and CN series for public cloud, as Wolf asked before. It's complementary. You need it. There are different use cases. Check our reference architecture guide. I think most of you know them already, but that is something really complementary, and you have to add Prisma Cloud if you want to interact with a public cloud provider, or if you want to go deep dive into code analysis, for example, right? That is something that the firewall just alone cannot do. Firewall is very good for everything related to network security. For all the other topics, you need a different approach. And I know that we are working. There is no kind of NFR offering, but we have very supportive distributor who help us. So if you're interested in, buying the solution for yourself in order to be able to make demo and develop use cases, just reach out to us. Okay, so maybe now it's time to just jump into the demo. And I will start with the first demo about CSPM, that means Cloud Security Posture Management. And the easiest way, when I want to talk about Cloud Security Posture Management, I just go to Inventory and into Asset. And then I show that. So again, I'm showing you the enterprise version. Okay, it's SaaS-based, hosted by Palo Alto Networks, and we have all feature set here. When we start and we connect using API to one or several public cloud providers, we will automatically discover a lot of assets, everything we can discover using APIs. A lot of services, a lot of workloads, and you can see here, which is really a USP from us. We are multi-cloud. You have everything in one tool. Okay, I know that some cloud providers claim that they can do the same, and you can buy that, and you can buy another tool and another subscription to make security. There is nothing integrated, first of all. Secondly, they don't have a security focus. And thirdly, they only, it's working well for their cloud. So, of course, for their own product, as soon as you're multi-cloud. And that is a trend that we are very clearly seeing coming. For every bigger company has a multi-cloud approach, right? Because they don't want to rely on just one cloud provider. They also want to consume what works best from each provider. For example, AWS Lambda is the most popular today service for function as a service. There was a question about Azure. So of course, Azure is, trying to keep up and developing new services as well. We see that for a container as a service, GKE, Google Cloud is very, very popular because they have really an on-demand and stateless offering as well. So they have both. It can be very, very dynamic, and Google is strong in with students and a lot of new people coming to the markets. They know Google well already. So that's why we see them. We see a lot of customers because they have a long history with Microsoft going into Azure and consuming service there. Also because sometimes it's free or it's part of the subscriptions they have or the contract they have with Microsoft. So multi-cloud is really the trend we are seeing. And if you want to be efficient and if you want to be consistent from a security perspective, you need a tool that can be multi-cloud. So you see here, just you start inventory assets. We discover a lot of services, thousands and thousands of workload for all the clouds we are supporting, right? And again, I'm talking about CSPM here. We are using APIs. We support those 5 cloud types. Okay, now you may think about, okay, what is that? Here I can see, green, I can see orange, I can see red, I can see high, medium, or low, pass or fail. What does it mean? As I told you, the tool comes with hundreds and hundreds of predefined policies. And if we go to policy, you can see them. Here we have more than 1,000. I think out of the box, we have between 700 and 800 policy. And I have some colleagues with admin rights in these tools. They are just adding, like you can see here, test Alex. This is not coming from Palo Alto Networks. This is one of our SE specialists who just added a policy. What is interesting here, if I go to policy type, you can see that we have several policy type. Again, a USP from Prisma Cloud, a unique selling point. We are not just checking the configuration. When we connect to your public cloud, we are taking a lot of metadata. Okay, it's very important. We are not duplicating the traffic. We are just using metadata, but it's about we are interacting and checking data about identity and access management. Of course, the configuration. How is your infrastructure configured? We are gathering audit events. Data, that's for the DLP part, the new service that we launched. As you can see here, it's just as I told you. We are starting with AWS because it's for us really the biggest use case. Network, so we are checking network traffic as well, what is called in AWS, for example, VPC flow logs, but it's the same concept for other cloud providers. And the tool comes as well with, AI capabilities, detecting user behavior that is strange, that is not normal, or let's say suspicious. And we deliver out of the box for, I'm not sure it's 48, but over 40 for sure, policies to detect suspicious behavioral. So I'm just looking for a word. Suspicious behavior from users. Sorry for that. Okay, so we have a lot of policies predefined, and I will now just show you one policy. Just taking one, so you can see the detail. The predefined policy cannot be deleted, but you can just disable them, and if you want, you can duplicate them. So again, very important. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to start from scratch, from zero. You can just reuse what is provided out of the box and maybe slightly modify it if you want. I'm just saying that there is a question. Okay, I hope you can hear me better. Sorry for the microphone.
Ja, ist besser. Danke, Nico.
Good. What I wanted to show you as well, when you talk about the policy, you see that green checkbox here. That means remediable. The tool can be active as well. If we detect something, because you're modifying a config, I'm here in the config policy part, we can revert that. Okay, it's not possible for everything we detect, of course, depending on the policy, depending on what needs to be done. We cannot do it for you. But a very simple example is that if an administrator is open port 22 or port 80 to get access to some resource that is internet exposed, for example, and he's doing that Friday evening, and then everybody forgets about it, and then after a few minutes you see the first port scan and someone is trying to attack the machine. As soon as we're gonna detect that, as we detect that port 22 or port 80 is open, or whatever port where you can configure that, we can revert it and we can block it. That is what some policy are remediable, and that is really really interesting and really powerful. Per default, it's not active, because when we start the POC, of course, we don't want to be disruptive and starting modifying the configuration, but that is something that that of course you can enforce later on. And for that, you need kind of read-write privileges, of course. We must be able, with the service account you provide us, to interact with your infrastructure. If you don't want to do it, of course, it's not mandatory, but it's a real nice capability. I will just show you how you can clone a policy and how a policy is built. So, of course, there is a name, a description, a severity, and labels. And here the policy is built based on a query. Okay, the query language is called RQL, Redlock query language, because Redlock was one of the acquisition we made. And I will show you later on how easy it is just to build a policy. Again, so the query language is really self-explained. We can parse each and every information we get within your public cloud. Okay, you know that everything is described as code. It's a JSON file, and each and every parameter we can find is that in that JSON file, we can use it to create a query. So we can use that query just to investigating, or we can, I mean, ad hoc, because you are looking for, you know, some resources, you want to get some information, or you can build really policy that will be run on a regular basis using APIs. Okay, I duplicated a policy, so that's why there is already a query in there. Each policy can be linked optionally to a compliance standard. Okay, that default policy was linked to a lot of compliance standards. We provide over 15 out of the box already. And when you then generate a compliance report, basically, we will just assess everything we find. Each time an asset was checked by a policy, was it good or not good? And that is what you have seen before in the dashboard about fail or pass. Okay, and that will give you dedicated reporting depending on the compliance report. Even if your customer needs to follow some very specific or is under very specific regulation, you can create your own. Okay, you can create your own report. And how you do that? Basically, you are creating your own policy. Let's say you create 5 or 10 policy, and you will link them optionally with your own compliance standard. Okay, for example, here AC test is not something we provide out of the box. This is again one of our colleagues who created a new compliance standard, and then you can add as many policy or link as many policy with that specific compliance standard. Okay, so compliance is an important topic, of course, when you go to public cloud, and it's a very nice discussion you want to have with your customer, because most of the times I think they can go to public cloud because of compliance, and it's not true. And the next remediation part. So each policy, default policy, comes with a description, because it can concern a lot of asset, a lot of function, a lot of cloud providers. You cannot be an expert with each and everything. So it's important to understand what is going on and what is the policy about and what are the recommendations in order to remediate. I duplicated a policy that is remediable, you remember, with a green check mark. And that's why here there is already a CLI command. In that case, it's an S3 bucket that is publicly accessible. We will give you the CLI command in order to revert that. Okay. It's not active per default, but now if I would duplicate the default policy and enforce it, if I would clone it, yes, that is going to be active. And of course, I need a service account with the appropriate privileges in order to enter that CLI command. And all those policies, of course, will generate some alerts. It always generates alerts. Okay, whatever you want to make in public cloud, you will always find something that is not well configured. So no worries about that. If you start a POC, you will start a good conversation with your customer. You will be able to show him stuff he was not aware of. I'm very confident about that. So let's filter here. You see
here, Nico.
Yes. Yes.
The auto remediation feature is not schedulable, right? So that means if we see something through the API that we could resolve ourselves, it is done immediately, right?
It is done as soon as we detect it, yes, if you auto remediate it. But if you don't do it,
and you can do it manually and schedule it.
You can do it manually exactly when you see it.
Thank you.
So I will filter here. You see that you have alert type, of course, based off policy types, the different policy type I showed you. Now, if I go to look for some alerts generated by config policy, and I go to page 2, at least it was working yesterday. I hope they didn't, modify everything. Okay, this is an easy one. AWS security group allows all traffic on SSH ports. Okay, so that's an easy one. It allows me as well to explain that an AWS security group is nothing else than just a layer 4 firewall, like an ACL, right? That's why you need a real firewall on top, like a CN series or a VM series, depending on what you want to protect and depending on the architecture. And you can see that this policy generated over 300 alerts. Okay, now I can click on those alerts and go deep dive in there. As I told you, each policy has a decryption. Comes with some recommendation about, hey, what you should do. In that case, it's quite easy, right? We detected that there is a policy that allows any IP addresses. So you can see the mask is the IP address with a /0 subnets to access some resource, or to get access to some resource on port 22, which is obviously not a good idea. Opening it to the internet. Now you can see that this policy checked a lot of resource, and we have a lot of resource here, a whole list of resource who generated that alert. Okay, you can see that, of course, the policy is working for all accounts because we are multi-cloud, but we are also multi-account, right? Just for AWS, you can add several accounts, and big organization, of course, they are segregating production and development and QA and so on. Whatever the region, it's not important. I can get some details. I will just start with the very first alert that we have. Resource configuration, view details. I can see exactly how that resource is configured, right, as a JSON file. If it comes. Okay, sorry for that. And remember, everything you see here can be parsed and can be checked using a query. So you can build a query where you can say, okay, I want to find all resources where the key is EKS and the value is test and configured like this. So it's exactly the same way you will build a policy. Okay, so very, very powerful to have that kind of visibility within your public cloud with the multi-cloud approach. Again, here I have a small link if I want to go directly to AWS, to the console, to that resource, and I want to see in AWS how that resource is configured. I can also go there and go specifically to the resource config within Prisma Cloud. Always taking a little bit of time. Here I can see again that this the configuration from the resource. So it's identified or uniquely identified. I should say exactly which account name was used to discover it, in which VPC it's running, and so on, and in which region. We can show you all different kind of network connections and traffic that we identified, and of course, how many alerts were generated by this resource. So I started from one alert. I find a list of different resources who generated that alert. Now I'm on that resource, and now I can see that this resource actually generated a lot of other alerts for other policy, right? So you're really able to investigate within your public cloud. And the cool stuff here, you have the whole history, right? From the moment when we found, or when the resource was created, in that case, right? Probably it was not existing prior to when we connected the tool. If not, you would see like resources discovered. In that case, you can see here resource was created, and then you have the whole history. Each time someone is modifying something, you have the audit, and you have the audit. You can see here the icon. Okay, there was a modification, and what's interesting for you as a security perspective, hey, that modification triggered an alert. Okay, so you can see exactly what's going on, and for each step, you can click here and you can see the config. So you can make a diff and you can exactly understand, okay, what was modified, what kind of code was changed, and what kind of alerts then was triggered, right? So, and that is what I wanted to show you from a history perspective and from an audit trail perspective. Okay, here you can see we added just a lot of alerts, 5 or 6 of them that were discovered, and the very first one a little bit earlier. That gives you really ability to understand what is going on in the public cloud, to discuss with the developer or with the administrator, why have you done that? And of course, you are able sometimes to prevent it or at least to revert it if we have the capabilities, right? Depending on what kind of alert was triggered. And last point, if I go here to investigate, and if you just want to build a query and understand how to build a query from scratch, I can show you a very easy example. So I've prepared one here. Okay, and the example is just about finding all VM series virtual machine running on in Azure, but that are not running, that are actually powered off. Okay, and I will not going to use the keyboard. I'm not just going to use the mouse. If you click here in the query field, you can see you can start. Okay, I want to filter about config logs, event logs, or network data. I will go for config. Okay, cloud resource, that is coming automatically. Okay, I don't need to type anything with my keyboard. I'm clicking on where, API name equals. I will have a list of all public cloud provider or kind of resource we support. Now we scroll down to Azure. I was too fast. And it's called Azure Vm List, really an easy one. Okay, that is nothing else than just an API call to Azure. And the JSON rule. Okay, we're gonna pass the JSON file, what I've told you. Power state does not contain. Okay, and because it's contained here, I have to enter something. So I have to use my keyboard for the very last word, and it's not contained, it's running. I hope you can hear me well because it's really slow here.
Yes, the voice is perfect.
Voice is perfect now. Okay.
Voice is perfect, yeah. But yeah, the screen is refreshing slowly, but that's fine.
It's the same for me. So I'm not sure if my internet has some issue. Sorry for that. That's why I was asking. Okay. So I have to wait and to be patient as well. Okay. And so that is the last part I wanted to show you about CSPM, Cloud Security Posture Management. You can very easily go and investigate and found, in my case, a very simple example, VM series with power state is not running, right, as of today in Azure. But I just wanted to show you the capability, how you can interact with public cloud providers using API and how you can pass those JSON files, the config files, and you can really check each and every parameter that is in that JSON file. Okay, and then feel free to go further. Maybe you start to investigate, you find one query that is really helpful for you, and then you can just take it and create a new policy, and then the query will be run automatically and will generate alerts depending on what you have configured. It will generate you visibility. Of course, maybe compliance if you link that policy to compliance tunnel. That is how the CSPM part is working. Okay, any question? I was a little bit too long, I think.
No, it was okay. No questions so far. So again, please feel free to ask questions during the session. Use the F&A window within Zoom. Huh?
Okay. Good. So let's get quickly back to the presentation. I wanted to focus on the second part, the second very important part called cloud workload protection. And the demo will be will not be that long for that part, right? So mainly it was the acquisition from Twistlock and PureSec, bringing us the capabilities to integrate ourselves as an agent. And you see there are different type of agent depending on what you want to protect. It can be running as a host, as a different process directly on the VM, on the host where you will host containers, for example. Okay, it can be running as a container itself, which is, I think, the use case we are showing the most and the most interesting for the customer. We can really integrate ourselves as a container with what is called a Defender node, a Defender container. We can integrate within your infrastructure. And as a container is kind of a standardized form factor, we are very, very flexible. Okay, so we can integrate in your infrastructure on-prem, we can integrate in your infrastructure in public cloud if you're hosting it yourself, infrastructure as a service. We can integrate as well in platform as a service for container, which is also called CaaS, container as a service. You can see it here, right? Oops. You can see it here, container as a service. Or now Google has now even a more advanced, I would say, offering on-demand container, which is stateless. Okay, working a little bit differently, but basically it's really on demand. It's like serverless, like function as a service, but for container. You're really just asking, okay, I need a few, give me, I consume it, and then I give it back. It's just destroy. I'm paying what I'm using, and depending on the kind of infrastructure, depending on your maturity level or what you want to do, you will be able to deploy the agent in those different form factor, right? And here we support much more clouds. Serverless now it's only Lambda, so that is limited to AWS, but more to come. But from a container perspective or just host, it can be fully on-prem, it can be in a private cloud, or whatever you want. Okay. So, and we will add some, of course, security capabilities, or we'll bring some security capabilities with those agents. So we will be able to have a vulnerability management view, compliance for that specific area. And we know that we have some plans, to link it with a CSPM part and to have a more combined view about compliance. It's not the case today, but there is a plan for that. Runtime defense. Runtime means, hey, once a container is started, processes are running, what can we detect there? And we were discussing that a little bit already, web application and API security. So you probably recognize here the OWASP top 10 use cases we are covering. Those are really WAF functionalities, a web application firewall. It's only for HTTP traffic, right? HTTP based, don't forget. A firewall, a VM series or a CN series can scan all apps with threat prevention and SSL interception and wildfire and DNS and so on. But we are providing that so very specifically for WAF capabilities and API security as well, and also even access control to make sure who is accessing. It's always the same. What are the privileges? Are you able to write some information as well, or just to read some information? What is the level of privileges you need? Who you are? What is your identity? So we have possibilities for that as well. Okay, the last part, very, very important. Yes. We have, of course, security capabilities for the run phase, right? Everything is set up and running, but we want to integrate much earlier. We want to embrace the shift left philosophy and bringing security to the developer as soon as possible, as soon as he's writing code, as soon as he's trying to push something through that development pipeline. We can scan it, we can intercept it, and we can even block it, right? We can block it, or we can set kind of a threshold telling him, hey, you know what? This is a vulnerability. It's too critical for us. We can give you 3 days or just 2 hours, but you have to fix it. And if you don't fix it in 2 hours, we're going to destroy the container. Will not be able to publish it anymore. Okay. So we have flexibility. It's not just binary. And as I said, we can integrate for the CWP part, where we deploy ourselves as an agent in we have much more flexibility. It's not just about the 5 big public cloud providers. Of course, we support them, and we support them with different kind of offerings, right? So for container as a service, for stateless container, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, on-prem, public cloud, private cloud. We have a lot of flexibility there. And again, all the CI/CD tools. Good. That is just, I showed you that already. It's a little bit redundant about the architecture and the different ways you have to integrate the agent for the CWP part. And that is, you see here the name Prisma Cloud Compute. This is also the Prisma Cloud Compute offering, okay, where we can cover only that. So we don't have the APIs for public cloud, all the demo, everything I showed you in the last 40 minutes, we cannot cover it. But if you have a customer that just starts saying, hey, you know it, I need only really on-prem, it's really critical, I don't have a cloud strategy yet, and so on, we have that. Okay, so you can deploy it only on-prem with some, I would say, a limitation, and you cannot benefit from the whole package, of course. Good. Don't need those slides.
Quick
Okay.
question here, Nico.
Yes.
Regarding the integration, what platforms are supported? I mean, if I write my code, it doesn't matter what it is, infrastructure as code or real code, and we want to scan that code. What platforms are supported? Is it Windows, Mac OS, and Linux, or are there any limitations?
It's not about the OS itself. So there are two parts, I would say. Okay, the agent you can run. Let me just start, and I will try to answer your question during the demo. Okay,
go ahead.
If I go to the compute part, I'm focusing now on CWP, Cloud Workload Protection. Okay, so Radar, the first view here is basically a graphical dashboard, which is always nice when you make a demo to customers or partners. Of course, cloud here, we are talking about public cloud only, but it gets a good overview. You know, where do you have assets running? How many clouds are you using? And then you can have the host view. And when I'm talking about the host view, it's really an agent, a process, a daemon set that is running on the Linux host, and there is a list of compatibility from where you can run that agent. Okay, but here we are talking about host protection to give you visibility to vulnerabilities, compliance check, or even runtime events running on that host. Now, that is one part. Okay, what you are referring to is more the shift left and analyzing code where we integrate in CI/CD tools, and the operating system where those tools are running is not relevant. Okay, so if I go here, I just have to find the right one. I think it was in the SecOps dashboard where you can see it. If they added some data, it would be good. Okay, so just let me find another one. Okay, Devops View is probably better. Here, that is what I was looking for. Here you can see all the developers tools, the CI/CD tools we have an agent for, or we have an integration for. Okay, and we can integrate with those tools, and basically we don't care on which operating system that tool is running, because we are integrating with the tools to analyze the code. Okay?
Got it, yeah.
So we have plugins or directly using APIs. It depends a little bit on the tools and what we can what we can do. But mostly we have plugins, and you can just install plugins to all those tools. So and then you can enforce policies. And we basically don't care where that tool is running or what kind of operating systems. Now, if I go back to the compute part, here it's about installing an agent on the host, because you want the same security levels and you would have for your containers, for example, and you want to enforce the same kind of policy. But it's not about analyzing the code. Okay, code is analyzed using plugins in specific CI/CD tools. Okay, here we deploy an agent and you can see in that example as a container, the Defender container I was referring to, or directly on the host, or we add some code to your serverless function, and then we can make vulnerability checks, compliance check, runtime checks, and so on. I hope it's clear.
Yes, thank you for the clarification.
Good. Good. Okay, so I think the most interesting view is that one about container, right? Because running just a process on the host is something everybody can do, but really integrating ourselves as a container, and you can see it here, the container is called Defender, right? Into your infrastructure, that is really interesting. So as you can see, you have some colors. You have green, you have red, you have very red. I don't know. I don't know how to say, but obviously that is green is good and red is not so good, and we should take care about that. And you have different views. You have a vulnerabilities view, you have a compliance view. Again, it comes with a predefined compliance report and compliance checks, and you have runtime events as well, right? I think whatever the kind of dashboard or the radar view you will choose here, you will always come to the same information because it's very consistent. So if I start with vulnerabilities and I click here on that container, the little one here means there is only one container running. Of course, you could have thousands of containers. We would not display thousands of containers graphically, right? We will display only one and show you how many from those containers are running. You can see here that we identified some communications, those are ports, TCP ports, and that is what I wanted to mention with layer 4 basic filtering capabilities or firewalling capabilities. But we can identify that. We can even learn that. You can configure the tool to learn how the container is acting or behaving on the beginning, with, of course, a guess that that he's acting well, no suspicious behavior, it's totally clean, and then you can use it as a baseline for your policy enforcement. Okay, so you don't need to write again all policy from scratch, starting from zero. You will get a lot of policies recommendation as well. Like right, the front end discussing with the middleware discussing with a database, and so on, and you can easily build a good policy set just based on what was learned and the default behavior from your container. Now, when I click on it, you can see here that icon. That means that we have a WASP profile applied to it. Okay, and it's called web, so we can guess that it's a web server, probably a front end, accessible from the internet. You always come to that view, right? So again, very interesting to understand from which image it was built and what is the image ID, because with a tool you can trust images, right? Images are like templates. You don't a container is is always built from an image, and if you want to modify something, you modify the image. Modifying the image means you will get a new image ID. We can scan that image ID and we can whitelist it and flag it as trusted. Okay, that is very helpful. Depending, of course, you can write your own image ID. You can download it from a lot of different repositories on the internet. You know that the container are driven, of course, from the open source community as well. You have a lot of repos in the internet. You want to be sure that you are downloading it from a trusted repository. That is something you can configure as well. So really helping you developers adopt best practices and adopt a good security posture from the beginning. Okay, you can identify it exactly in which environment that container is running. So you can see here the host name, T11, and you can get So here you just see T11, but you could have much more. Again, it would be the same view if you have thousands of containers running there on different hosts. And I show you that outgoing port. You see that the tool automatically discovered that that container discussed of a port TCP 80 or 33 or 6. I will just click again on it. What is even more interesting is that one. Okay, so that is what before I told you, whatever the view you can choose here, the information here is always consistent in that pop-up. Let's start with vulnerabilities because we find some critical vulnerabilities. If I go to vulnerabilities, of course, I get a list from all vulnerabilities that were discovered with a description. And that is really interesting. In the conversation you want to have with your developer saying, hey, why are you using these packages with a very well-known CVE flagged as critical, but with a fix available in more than 2 years? Okay. Where have you downloaded that? Was it still on your machine? Are you not aware about it? And so on. And you see here grace period. This is where I could configure a grace period telling the developer, hey, I give you 2 days. If you don't fix it, we destroy everything. Okay, or you are not able to run it anymore. Okay, so that really helps in the conversation and helping fixing problems, because what you really don't want to do is deploy code with a lot of vulnerabilities that is exposed to from the outside, for example, and everybody can leverage that. So you really want the developer to adopt better practices when it comes to security. And it will be the same for all the other use cases that are listed here. I think there was one interesting as well with PHP. It's not here anymore. Yeah, no worries. But Apache 2, another example, but it would be exactly the same approach. And we give you the visibility, right? So CVE, you can see if I click there, we give you, so it's not just something, kind of a database that was once populated within the tools and so on. It's real time, it's cloud-based, it comes with all the threat intel from Palo Alto Networks, and we are checking that all the time, and give you some description and recommendation as well, right? Again, here there is a fix. Since more than a year, you should use it. Compliance checks, there are default policies enforced and used for compliance also, like for the CSPM part. And you can see here when it comes to compliance with security checks, it's very similar to what you know already, private key store in that image. Okay, that means in the image, if somebody is able to get access to that image, he has a private key, he will be able to access to all containers that were deployed based on that image, right? Which is not really a good idea. Image should be created with a non-root user. Too much privileges, default admin password, default root user. It's not. It's definitely not the best practice. We can define all that stuff, right? And in a lot of images, especially when they come from the internet, when you download stuff it's open source, is what one student who made something available, you will find a lot of those vulnerability and a lot of those problems not following best practices. Runtime events. Did we find something during runtime? So once the container is launched, based on all of the processes and the communication we were able to analyze, you want to go deeper there with a forensic module, really understanding step by step, the different incidents that were, or the different event type we were able to detect. So if you have SOC, if you have people who really want to understand better, deeper dive, what is going on, and maybe did something happen, if you want to investigate, if you want to do incident response, for example, you might need to go deeper and to use that view, right? So you have the detailed from the event we identified, and you have the timeline as well. And layers, and I really like that one. That when you build a container, you have kind of a when you start, each time you modify something, it will give you a layer. You have another, I would say, level of granularity within your container, right? And you could take an image and you can take code and you could modify it and build a new image. We give you the visibility within the layers. You can see some are green and some here is red. And what does it mean? For example, if I just select that line here, copy file, the developer, as soon as I click on it, it will highlight this line in blue. Okay, so it's just executing a copy command. It's blue and it's green. Everything is fine. Now, when the developer runs this apt-get here, maybe you wanted to update something, or just updated everything with with that command, and you can see it in blue. That specific command introduced a lot of vulnerabilities. Okay, again, it's exactly the kind of conversation you want to have with a developer. Why have you done that? It is exactly at that stage where you introduced a lot of vulnerabilities. You should not do that. You should not use such kind of packages. Or you should, better check what you are updating, from where you are updating. Here we can guess that it was, just default apt get update command you were running, but nothing was checked. Nothing was checked after all. We can do it if the developer is not enforcing that, right? And you can get more info about your about all the process that are running, all the packages that we found, right? The name, which source, which version, known CVEs. So it gives you really a very, very good and granular visibility within your environment. Okay, that was the example for containers, but I think it's the most interesting example. So you have seen the kind of policy we can enforce for vulnerabilities and compliance. For example, I could go there also, or again on that computer, and go to WAS because we detected something in WAS also. And so you can see what we detected right now, and I jumped automatically to here to monitor and events, and the kind of events we just detected with our WASP WAS feature, which is focusing on web application firewalling and API security. Okay, it's only for HTTP based traffic, but it's really important. If you want to see how such a WAS policy is built, we can go here to WAS. Okay, web application and API security. I think Bitwarden was a good example. I checked it before. Okay, so you can see that you can define which host you want to protect, right? With the URL. You can say what you want to, what kind of traffic you want to analyze, and if you want to intercept the TLS also, and what kind of protection layer you want to enforce. In that case, we have three: we have app firewall, we have bot protection, and we have DOS protection. Okay, and I could go there and add an app where I could again add the endpoint. I could here go to a specific API protection policy, right? And I could really write the command as a path actually that can be used or that is allowed for that specific resource. Okay. If I just want to make or to make available one query, I can enter the path here, I can enter the method, and then everything else will just be denied, which is really powerful. Right, and really you can reduce your attack surface and work with a zero trust philosophy. And you can add application firewall capabilities, so with OWASP top 10. And you can see here additional, I would say, generic capabilities that you can just enforce for that specific web resource, right? The difference between here you have alert and you have prevent. We're going to block it. With ban, even the IP address is banned for a longer time, and you can configure that. You can activate DOS protection. You can activate access control, ACLs. As I said, you can activate bot protection also, right? So I don't want to go too deep dive within that. You have seen all the capabilities. I cannot simulate that. I don't have access, to any resource where I could show you how, I would say in real time, how to enforce such a policy. But I just wanted to give you a good overview about everything we can enforce now, specifically for web resources with that WAS capability here. Okay, it's 10:21. Just checking the questions.
So far, no new questions. It's funny, when we do a cloud demo or presentation. I don't know, people stay quiet. I don't know why. either it is new to all of them, or I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, we will do a firewall presentation soon because we're launching Pano Standard 1. So then maybe they're going to ask more.
No, thank you, Nico. It was a great overview, and I think it really demonstrates the power of Prisma Cloud with the two modules we just covered, posture management and workload protection. I mean, if you want to see more or have questions, I mean, feel free to contact us, contact Nico, or there is even a dedicated speedboat a team available within Switzerland to help you winning projects and support you. So I will then take over. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Can you stop?
If there is no question,
sharing?
I will stop sharing.
Yes. And I will then quickly cover the last part of that presentation. It's basically the licensing and useful links. So as Nico mentioned, there are two versions available. So Palo Alto makes it really easy. So you can either use, and I think that would be the primary use case, the SaaS version. Everything is hosted, and the version name is then Prisma Cloud Enterprise Edition. It has all the modules available as Nico showed you before. So the CSPM module, the cloud security posture management is available, as well as the cloud workload protection module. If you want to host the software itself, on-prem, for example, then only the cloud workload protection modules are available. All is based on the licensing itself, or the modules itself is based as a credit system. That means if your customer or you have to purchase a minimum of 100 credits initially, but then you really can pick and choose what features and modules you're going to use. And each module consumes then a certain amount of credit points. So if you want to deploy, for example, the cloud workload protection for VMs, then a Defender agent consumes 1 credit. And if you want to protect 10 VMs, then you will be charged 10 times 1 credit, which equals then 10 credits. So it's very easy in terms of licensing. What other resources are available, or what are useful information that you could read through? First of all, it's the official Prisma Cloud documentation. There are lots of reference guide and architectural guide, and of course the entire admin guide for the SaaS version. If it comes to questions in general or specifically to Prisma Cloud, there is a live community available. I've hyperlinked everything, so you later on when you get the presentation, you can use these links. Simply ask the community, and I'm sure you get soon answers to your questions. And there is also the Prisma Cloud blog, which I made 2 references on the right side. It's not always about new features and upcoming releases, but from time to time, Palo Alto Networks publishes new findings, maybe from the Unit 42 threat research team, or also trends in the cloud computing space. And last but not least, if you want to do some hands-on on the solution, there is an ultimate test drive available. The point here is since it is everything hosted, you really have to schedule an appointment, and then you can familiarize yourself with the solution, like Nico presented. What else is available? We have the Beacon Learning platform. I'm pretty sure you all are aware of it. And within that learning platform, there are different modules available for just Prisma Cloud. I personally did some of them, and they were really useful for me. I mean, it gives a good overview, but also if you want, you can dive deep and deeper and deeper into the content. There is also an official proctored Pearson VUE exam available. So if you want to present you as an expert and in Prisma Cloud, you can go to a course, consume the Beacon platform modules, and later on make the Pearson VUE test. So time is running quickly. Still, we have some time for questions and answers. So I'm asking Nico, do we have any? Oops, that was a little bit too fast. Do we have any questions here? So yes, there is one question from Patrick Diener. I read it quickly. How does the licensing work for the CEM functionality? So the identity and access management security. What will consume how many licenses? So I don't know on top of my head how many credits the IAM module will cost, but in the presentation, I've referenced to the data sheet and principle. You will see there how each module and function credit-wise costs you. So I encourage you that you use that links and look up the functions and features that you're going to use and make your own calculation based on that. I hope that answers that question. Do we have other questions?
I can just write an answer so everybody can see it as well. Just regarding the question that was about identity and access management security, and we will share the data sheet with you. Okay.
Right.
So basically, we're gonna considering what are all the credits you are using specifically for AWS CSPM, and it's just gonna be a factor we're gonna use to multiply that, and it's basically like an add-on on top from what you are already using for CSPM, based on the number of credit you are consuming.
So then I think if there are no more questions, let me see. Boris is asking, will there be a cloud SLR made available? Do you have an answer to that, Nico, or should I make a note?
No, I know that we are working on the classical SLR to make it even to actualize it. Let's say it like this, based on new capabilities now we have, but it's more related on firewall and new subscriptions that we have. Specifically cloud, I don't know, but we know that we definitely need more reporting. Definitely, because in the tool, yes, we have reporting, and we know that we will add capabilities. So generally speaking, about reporting, especially to make it even, to link it even better together, the two parts, CSPM and CWP. That will come for sure. Will it be an SLR? I don't know, probably not. But you need to connect the tool in order to gather the logs and all the information, and then generate a good report. And we are working on that for sure.
Okay, let's see if we have other questions. No, I think that's it for now. Yeah, in general, I mean, we are interested in your feedback. Please let us know if you have wishes for upcoming webinars, what content you want to see, or if you have suggestions for improvements and so on. You have my contacts, or you can also send your feedback to Peter Bernold, or if you have general questions, of course, use sales@boll.ch. I want to say thank you especially to Nico. You think you deserve a big applause.
Thank you.
Well done. No, really.
I cannot hear the others.
Well, I will clap louder
Thank
then. No, you did it very well. Thank you, Nico. It was very interesting. I learned a lot, and it's always good to see, to have a good mixture of, slideware, but also demoing the product. Finally, also thank you to all the attendees. I hope it was useful for you. You learned also some new stuff. Thanks for attending. Stay healthy, take care, and hope to see you soon in another Boll online session. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, guys. Bye-bye.